Welcome to Karen's HOA Nightmares. Get ready for the most outrageous, shocking, and downright hilarious tales from the world of homeowners associations. In today's story, Clara Mitchell and her husband Leo's peaceful life at their lake cabin is shattered when Aggie Periwinkle, the power-hungry new HOA president, starts harassing them with fines and threats. Aggie's obsession with measuring every inch of their property turns into a battle of wills, but Clara, secretly the state's assistant attorney general, is ready to fight back. In a shocking twist, Clara uses her legal expertise to expose Aggie's fraudulent activities, turning the tables and making sure justice is served. What follows is a viral confrontation that leaves Aggie facing the consequences of her actions. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest hot stories. She's trespassing. Arrest her now. The woman, holding a measuring tape like it was a weapon, called the police on my wife for simply watering her roses at our own lake cabin. The officer's hand went straight to his cuffs and the woman smirked, clipboard in hand, already prepared to document my wife's arrest. My heart skipped a beat. We were about to lose everything, but then in the next 3 minutes something happened that shocked the world. The officers didn't arrest my wife. Instead, they saluted her. Clara had been hiding something that turned the tables on this woman and gave her instant karma. Stick around to see what happened next. Our lake cabin isn't just a property, it's a legacy. Built in 1924 by Clara's great-grandfather, every floorboard creaks with history. The wraparound porch where Clara's grandmother once taught her how to braid hair still has the same rocking chairs that have been there for over 60 years. The oak tree with C+L209 carved into it still stands proudly, marking the day our family first celebrated this place. I even carved it myself on our anniversary. The cabin became our weekend retreat, a sanctuary from the hustle and bustle of city life. Every Friday, we'd leave behind the corporate world for a peaceful 48-hour escape. Clara, always an early riser, would brew coffee in the antique percolator, a relic of her grandmother's, and sit on the porch watching the mist rise off the lake, sometimes greeting a family of deer like they were old friends. I would usually stumble out an hour later, hair still a mess, and she'd laugh, her laugh that made me fall in love with her all those years ago. Then Aggie Periwinkle moved in, and just like that, our peaceful paradise began to erode. It was a Tuesday morning, and Clara was enjoying her coffee on the porch when Aggie appeared out of nowhere. Sharp bob, leopard print blouse, and a clipboard that probably cost more than our groceries. She marched toward us with a measuring tape attached to her belt like it was her badge of power. "Excuse me," she said, already unrolling the tape measure with a dramatic flourish. "I'm Aggie Periwinkle, your new HOA president." Clara, still half asleep, took another sip of coffee. "We don't have an HOA here," she replied, unimpressed. "Oh, but we do now. I've formed one. Democracy in action." Aggie's smile was cold as she bent down to measure our grass, our kayak, and even the bird bath. Each time she pointed out how everything, from the grass to the roses, violated her new regulations. When she started criticizing the roses, planted by Clara's grandmother nearly a century ago, Clara finally stood up. "Those roses stay," Aggie smirked. "Rules are rules, Mrs. Thompson." Clara's eyes narrowed. "Those roses were planted by my great-grandmother in 1924. They stay." Clara wasn't just upset. She was preparing for something bigger. That afternoon, Mrs. Mitchell, the elderly neighbor who'd lived here longer than anyone, came by. She shared a disturbing story about Aggie, how she'd driven out past neighbors by exploiting HOA regulations and forcing them to sell for less than their property's worth. Aggie had a reputation for finding violations nobody knew existed, all in the name of turning a profit. Clara's expression grew darker as she listened. Aggie's manipulations went deeper than just petty measurements. She had a history of ruining people's lives for personal gain. The stakes rise. The next day, Clara spotted Aggie making deals with a surveyor on the lawn, discussing plans to clear the land and sell it for millions. Aggie had been targeting properties one by one, and ours was next. "I'm going to steal our home," Clara said, her voice filled with determination. "She knows who I am, and she's targeting us." The next morning, a college student knocked on our door, trembling with a stack of fines. For every violation, from grass height to the positioning of our kayak, there was a fine: $50 for the grass, $100 for the paint color, and even for the birds singing before 8 a.m., the fines quickly piled up. Clara stayed calm, documenting each violation with precision. This isn't acceptance, I knew. This is preparation. She was building her case, getting ready for the fight of her life. The final notice by the end of the week. We received a final notice, pay $5,000 in fines or face the sale of our property. But Clara didn't flinch. She held the paper, staring at the photo of her grandmother on the mantel. This cabin, this legacy, meant more to her than anything. She whispered, "This is all I have left of her." Clara takes control. Clara's resolve solidified. "This cabin is mine and I will protect it." With that, she made her move. Monday morning, she arrived at the cabin with a clear message. She wasn't here to reconcile. "This is my house now," she told Thomas, her voice firm and unshakable. "You and your mother live here at my discretion. The battle for the future." The final confrontation with Aggie was inevitable. Aggie's last words were a thinly veiled threat. "I'll see you on the streets." Clara's response? "No, you'll see me in the boardroom. Monday at 9 now, don't be late." And just like that, Clara took control of the situation, leaving Aggie and Thomas stunned in the aftermath. Gone was the shaky whisper. This was Clara's courtroom voice, the one that made opposing counsel sweat. Grandma didn't raise a quitter, and she definitely didn't raise someone who'd let a bitter, measuring tape-wielding bully steal what 4 generations built. She stood up, walked to her grandmother's photo, and touched it gently. "Time to show Aggie Periwinkle what happens when you come for a Mitchell woman's home." Clara transformed our living room into what looked like a command center from a legal thriller movie. Papers covered every surface, the coffee table, the couch, even spread across the floor in some complex pattern only she understood. Her laptop had 17 tabs open, and she'd connected her phone to continuously record for documentation purposes. "What exactly are you doing?" I asked, bringing her coffee. "Number 4. She'd switched to her research fuel. "Dark roast, no sugar, no cream, no mercy. What I do best," she replied, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Research, due diligence, and finding the truth." She started simple social media stalking. Aggie's profiles were public because of course they were. People like Aggie wanted the world to see their victories. Photos of her beside signs reading, "Future Site of Paradise, Lakeview Resort." Posts about cleaning up neighborhoods and improving community standards. But the comments told a different story. Former neighbors warning others. People sharing horror stories about fines and forced sales. Then Clara went deeper. She knew exactly what forms to file for official HOA documents, Freedom of Information Act requests that most people wouldn't even know existed. While we waited for those, she did something that showed just how serious this had become. She called in favors. "Hey, Jennifer, it's Clara." "Yeah, I know it's been a while. Listen, I need you to run a property record search, Aggie Periwinkle." "Yeah, that Aggie Perry." My wife, it turned out, had connections I didn't even know about. By Thursday, responses started coming in. "Leo, look at this." She showed me bank statements she'd somehow acquired legally. I didn't ask how. January 15th, $30,000 deposited to HOA account for landscaping project. But look outside, see any new landscaping? I peered out the window at the same scraggly bushes and patchy grass that had been there since we arrived. "She stole 30 grand. I couldn't believe it. Clara's smile was sharp enough to cut. "Allegedly, but I need more proof. Embezzlement is serious, but I need to show a pattern." That's when the universe decided to help us out. That very night we heard screaming from next door, Aggie's voice shrill and angry, followed by what sounded like Brad crying. 10 minutes later, Brad stumbled out of her house clutching his laptop like a life preserver. He saw us on the porch and hesitated. Clara stood up slowly like you would around a spooked animal. "Brad, you okay?" He looked around frantically, then ran over. "I can't do this anymore." The words tumbled out in a rush. "She's crazy. She threatens me every day. Says she'll ruin my law school applications. Says she knows people on the admissions board. I just wanted internship credits, but she's making me do illegal stuff. The HOA vote, only 5 people voted. 5 out of 50 houses. She made me forge the rest of the signatures." Clara had shifted into full lawyer mode, calm and focused. "Brad, that's a serious accusation. Do you have proof?" Brad laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. "Proof. I'm pre-law, Mrs. Thompson. I know evidence matters. I record everything." He pulled out a USB drive from his pocket. "Every conversation, every threat, every illegal thing she's made me do. I might be young, but I'm not stupid. I knew this would end badly, so I protected myself." Clara took the USB like it was made of gold. Brad, this is very brave of you. He shook his head. It's not brave, it's survival. That woman, she's not just mean, she's dangerous. Did you know she keeps files on everyone? Not just HOA stuff, personal things. She hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on every single homeowner. That made Clara pause. Files on everyone. Brad nodded frantically. She showed me yours. She knows. She knows who you really are, what you do for a living. She's obsessed with you specifically. Clara's face went very still. What exactly does she know? Brad looked uncomfortable. Everything. Your real job, your cases. She specially focused on something from 5 years ago. Some big real estate fraud case. She had newspaper clippings, court documents, everything. She'd stare at them for hours, muttering about revenge and justice and showing people what real power looks like. Clara and I exchanged glances. Brad, Clara said gently, I'm going to need you to be very specific. What exactly did she say about me? He squirmed. She said you destroyed her life, that you took everything from her. Her company, her money, her reputation. She said you hid behind your position and your power to crush honest business people. And now she was going to show everyone what you really are. A hypocrite who uses her position to hurt others. Clara plugged in the USB drive. File after file appeared on her screen, but one stood out. Paradise Master Plan Doc. We opened it together and my jaw dropped so hard I'm surprised it didn't hit the floor. It was a complete development proposal. Every detail planned out. Phase 1. Force out undesirable cabin owners through HOA harassment. Phase 2. Buy properties at drastically reduced prices. Phase 3. Demolish and build Paradise Lakeview Resort. Our cabin was marked in red. Phase 1 priority target estimated value $2 million. But at the bottom in what looked like a chat log was the real bombshell. Aggie, that female AG destroyed me 5 years ago. Cost me everything I'd built. Developer. So I target lakefront property seems risky. Aggie, because I know one lives here. Uses her maiden name. Thinks she's hidden. Clara Thompson. She's Attorney General Clara Mitchell. And I'm going to destroy her like she destroyed me. But what Clara found next made her hands shake for the first time ever. What could scare a state prosecutor? Comment what you think she discovered. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of tension that makes the air feel heavy. The community center, really just a converted barn that still smelled faintly of hay despite decades of renovation, had been transformed into Aggie's personal kingdom. She'd hung banners everywhere. Building a better tomorrow and community standards matter. Her face smiled from every poster like some kind of suburban dictator. I counted 12 posters just in the entrance. The woman had turned narcissism into an art form. 50 neighbors filed in slowly and I could read the fear on their faces like subtitles in a foreign film. These were people who'd lived here for decades, who'd raised their kids in these waters, who'd built their lives around the piece of lake living. Now they walked like defendants entering a courtroom, shoulders hunched, avoiding eye contact. Mrs. Mitchell sat in the front row, her usual strength seeming fragile as tissue paper. Her hands trembled as she clutched her purse, and I noticed she'd worn her nice church dress, the kind of armor people put on when they know they're heading into battle. Tommy had arrived early to set up his streaming station. Really just an iPad on a tripod, but the kid treated it like professional equipment. Yo, social media fam, Tommy here, and today's stream is going to be fire. We've got HOA drama and trust me, you don't want to miss this. He'd already told me he'd 12,000 viewers watching live. 12,000 people about to witness what would become the most viral HOA meeting in internet history. Brad stood by the projector looking like he might throw up. He kept touching his pocket where I knew he had another USB drive, his insurance policy. The kid was sweating through his suit and his hands shook as he arranged papers he'd probably already arranged 10 times. Then Aggie entered. If the community center was her kingdom, she entered like a queen, ready for coronation. Power suit and blinding white probably chose it to look pure and trustworthy. Fresh haircut that looked expensive enough to feed a family for a week. And that measuring tape now bedazzled with rhinestones clipped to her belt like a sheriff's badge. She didn't walk, she glided with the confidence of someone who'd already won. Welcome, neighbors. Her voice filled the room with fake warmth. Today we solve problems. Today we build our future. Today we deal with the Clara problem. The way she said our names like we were a disease that needed curing made my blood boil. But Clara touched my hand under the table. Our secret signal for wait for it. Aggie clicked her remote with a flourish and the first slide appeared. Our cabin beautified to look like something from a horror movie. The photo was taken at the worst angle. Shadows enhanced, colors dulled to make our beautiful home look abandoned and decrepit. This eyesore, she announced, letting the word hang in the air like a curse, lowers all our property values. Would any of you want to explain to potential buyers why this shack sits on prime lakefront? She clicked again. Photos of our supposed violations filled the screen. Grass height measurements with red circles. Our kayak's placement marked with angry arrows. Even a blurry photo of our cat Schrödinger sitting in the window with the caption, "Unapproved pet visibility decreased negative impression." I kid you not. She was finding us because our cat liked to sunbathe. The Thompsons, she continued, voice dripping with disdain, have accumulated $5,000 in fines. They refuse to pay. They refuse to comply. They are anti-com community. The last word came out as a shriek. About 30 hands shot up in the air, too fast, too synchronized. These people had been coached, probably threatened. I recognized some faces, the Millers who'd just moved in last month, the Youngs who'd been struggling with their mortgage, people desperate enough to ally with Aggie out of fear or financial pressure. The others, the old-timers, kept their hands firmly down. Old fisherman Pete actually crossed his arms in defiance. Tommy zoomed his camera in on the divided room. "Chat, are you seeing this? It's like Civil War HOA edition. Motion to authorize forced sale of the Thompson property," Aggie announced triumphantly. "All in favor?" The same 30 hands stayed up. Motion carries. Democracy wins. She spun to face us with a kind of smile a snake might give a mouse. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, you have 7 days to vacate. After that, I'll be calling the police to enforce the HOA's legal rights. This is what happens when people refuse to follow simple rules. This is what happens when people think they're above the community standards." I wanted to jump up, to scream, to point out every lie and manipulation. But Clara rose slowly instead with the kind of calm that comes before hurricanes. The room went silent except for the faint whir of Tommy's iPad adjusting focus. "I have some questions about democracy," Clara said, her voice carrying the kind of authority that made even Aggie step back. Clara walked to the front, each step measured and deliberate. She pulled out her laptop and, before Bragg could react, plugged it into the projector. "Let's talk about democracy, shall we?" The first slide appeared. Original HOA bylaws required 75% vote to form. Clara, let that sink in. Only 5 people voted to create this HOA. That's 10%. Where I come from, that's not democracy. That's a coup. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The Millers looked confused. The Youngs started whispering to each other. Pete actually smiled for the first time in years. Clara clicked to the next slide. $30,000. Where is it? Bank statements filled the screen. Deposits, withdrawals, and one glaring fact. $30,000 for landscaping that never happened. "Every cent of HOA money must be accounted for," Clara explained, voice steady as a surgeon's hand. "Page 47 of the bylaws you wrote, Aggie. So where's the landscaping?" Aggie's face went from red to purple. "You can't access those records. That's private HOA business." Clara's smile could have cut glass. "Actually, any member can request financial transparency. It's the law, the actual law, not the made-up rules you've been using to terrorize these people." She clicked again. Chat logs appeared on screen. Tommy practically vibrated with excitement. "UOO, she's got receipts. Literal receipts." The messages were damning. Aggie discussing property values with the developer, talking about clearing out the old-timers and making Paradise Lakeview a reality. But the worst part was her specific targeting of our cabin. $2 million profit once we forced them out. One message read, "The AG won't know what hit her." The room erupted. People shouting, standing, pointing, but Clara raised her hand. And somehow, impossibly, everyone quiet. She had that effect. The ability to command a room without raising her voice. "There's more," she said simply and clicked play on an audio file. Aggie's voice filled the room, tiny but unmistakable through the speakers. "These old-timers don't know what hit them, especially that hidden AG. Clara Mitchell thinks her maiden name fools me. I've been planning this for 5 years. 5 years since she destroyed my life. I'll destroy her like she destroyed me. I'll take her home, her peace, everything she loves. And I'll do it all legally using the very law she hides behind." The recording ended. The silence was so complete I could hear Tommy's viewers typing comments. Then Brad stood up. Poor kid looked like he was about to pass out, but he stood. "It's true," he said, voice cracking but determined. "Every word. I recorded that conversation. I've recorded everything." He pulled out his USB drive, holding it up like evidence in a trial. "I have 57 recordings. Every forged signature, every threat, every illegal action. I'm pre-law, and I know right from wrong." "This," He gestured at Aggie. This is wrong. Aggie spun on him, face contorted with rage. You little traitor. I made you. I'll destroy your future. You'll never get into law school. I'll call every admissions board. You'll do nothing, Mrs. Mitchell interrupted, standing up despite her 78 years. Because I have something to say, too. She turned to face the room, voice stronger than I'd heard in months. This woman forced me to sell my first home. The cottage my late husband built with his own hands. She used the same tactics, fines, threats, harassment. I was too scared to fight back then. But not now. Not when I see Clara standing up. Not when I see this young man finding his courage. One by one, more people stood. The Johnstons, who I thought had moved voluntarily, revealed they'd been forced out by daily fines. The Patels shared how Aggie had called the health department on their home-based samosa business, claiming false violations until they gave up and left. Even quiet Pastor Dave's widow spoke up about how Aggie had driven them away with noise complaints about their Sunday hymn singing. Tommy's camera captured it all. Chat going crazy. 50,000 viewers. This is better than reality TV. The tide had turned. The 30 raised hands were lowering as people realized they'd been supporting a tyrant. Aggie looked around wildly, measuring tape clutched in her hand like a weapon. You think you've won? She shrieked at Clara. I'll call the police. You're all trespassing. This is a harassment, defamation, conspiracy. I'll sue every single one of you. She stormed toward the door, frantically stabbing at her phone. Police emergency. I'm being attacked by a mob led by Clara Thompson. Clara watched her go, then did something strange. She checked her watch and started counting down quietly. 3. Aggie screaming could be heard outside. Send officers now. They're violent too, Brad whispered to me. What's she doing? Why is she counting? 1. Clara's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and a small smile played at her lips. There it is, she said softly. Mrs. Mitchell looked worried. Clara, dear, what if she really brings the police? She's making serious accusations. Clara's smile grew wider. Oh, I'm counting on it. Why was Clara counting down? What did she know was about to happen? If you're screaming at your screen right now, you're not alone. Sunday arrived with the kind of perfect weather that makes you forget evil exists in the world. 2:47 p.m. Anthe Lake was mirror smooth, reflecting clouds so perfectly you could forget which way was up. Clara Ara knelt by her grandmother's roses, the ones that had survived 4 generations of storms, droughts, and now one megalomaniac with a measuring tape. She wore her grandmother's gardening gloves, soft leather worn smooth by decades of use, still smelling faintly of rose oil and earth. The old hymn she hummed was Amazing Grace, the same tune her grandmother used to sing while teaching her the difference between pruning for growth and cutting for control. You have to know when to cut and when to let bloom, she told young Clara. Same with people, honey. Same with people. It was manning our ancient charcoal grill, the one Clara's grandpa had welded together from an old oil drum in 1971. The thing looked like it belonged in a museum, but it made the best burgers in 3 counties. The secret was the seasoning, Clara's grandmother's blend that we still mixed by hand every summer. Mrs. Mitchell had brought her famous dumplings, the ones her own grandmother had taught her to make in China before the war. Food is memory, she always said. We eat our history. Tommy was in full content creator mode, setting up multiple angles for what he called his Lake Ife Sunday special. Yo fam, welcome back to the most chill spot on earth. Today we're keeping it peaceful with some garden content. And wait, is that Mrs. Clara with the roses? Let's get that aesthetic shot. He'd been streaming since noon, showing his viewers the real lake life, fishing off the dock, skipping stones, even a segment on identifying bird calls. Kid had turned our quiet corner into must-see content. Mrs. Clara, Tommy called out, adjusting his ring light. Say hi to the viewers. We got 20,000 watching live. Clara looked up from her roses, that dirt smudge on her cheek that always made my heart skip. She waved, looking nothing like the sharp-dressed attorney general who made opposing lawyers sweat. Here she was, just Clara, bare feet in the grass, hair pulled back in her grandmother's silk scarf, wearing the paint-stained jeans she refused to throw away because they'd been with her through every cabin repair. Hi, everyone, she said with that easy smile. Remember to stop and smell the roses. Life's too short not to. Mrs. Mitchell chuckled from her lawn chair. Such wisdom from someone so young. Your grandmother would be proud. She was working on her knitting, a blanket for her newest great-grandchild. Every stitch was perfect despite her arthritis because Mrs. Mitchell didn't believe in doing anything halfway. You know, Mrs. Mitchell continued, needles clicking in rhythm. After yesterday's meeting, I thought Aggie would. That's when we heard them. Sirens, not the distant kind that might be heading somewhere else. These were close, getting closer, and clearly heading our way. My spatula froze mid-flip. Clara's hand still illed on the watering can. Even Tommy went quiet. Camera still rolling, but his usual chatter stopped cold. The sirens cut off, but the lights kept spinning, throwing blue and red patterns across our perfect afternoon like some demented disco ball. Not one car, two. They pulled into our gravel drive with the kind of purpose that made my stomach drop. This wasn't a social call. Officer Martinez stepped out first, and the man was imposing. 6'3" of muscle and authority, built like someone who'd played linebacker before choosing a badge over a jersey. His hand rested on his weapon, not gripping, just resting, but the gesture was clear. This was official business. His partner emerged from the second car, younger but no less serious. Both had their body cameras on, little red lights blinking like electronic eyes. Then she appeared. Aggie Periwinkle burst from behind the thick honeysuckle bushes that separated our properties. She'd been hiding there who knows how long, waiting for this moment. Leaves clung to her previously perfect hair. Her white Powers suit had green stains from the foliage. Her face was flushed with triumph and rage, making her look like some deranged Christmas ornament. Officers, there she is, the criminal. She pointed at Clara with one hand while waving a stack of papers with the other. Looked like she'd printed out every email, every HOA notice, every scrap of evidence she could find. Her measuring tape swung wildly from her belt with each gesture, catching the light like a pendulum of doom. This woman assaulted me yesterday, stole from the HOA treasury. She's trespassing on HOA property right now. Check her record. She's using a fake name. She's a fraud. Her voice reached a pitch that made the nearby ducks take flight. Martinez approached slowly, professionally, the way cops do when they're not sure if they're dealing with a simple dispute or something more serious. His partner flanked him, maintaining that careful distance trained officers always keep. "Ma'am," Martinez addressed Clara, voice neutral but firm, "we received a call about assault and trespassing. I'm going to need you to step away from the flowers." Clara set down her watering can with deliberate calm. The metal made a soft clink against the stepping stone, one her grandfather had made by pressing shells into concrete when her mother was born. She stood slowly, brushing dirt from her knees, looking for all the world like someone who'd just been interrupted during a pleasant afternoon rather than accused of crimes. "Don't let her fool you," Aggie shrieked, spittle flying. "She's dangerous. She threatened me in front of 50 witnesses. She's a fraud using a fake name. Clara Thompson is really Clara Mitchell, the Attorney General who destroyed my life. She's here illegally. This is my jurisdiction now." Martinez's partner, Officer Johnson, according to his nameplate, exited the car and took position. Two cops, one Clara and Aggie, vibrating with vindictive energy. The math wasn't good. Tommy had gone from excited to terrified, his camera catching everything but his usual commentary replaced by heavy breathing. Oh man, he whispered. "This is bad. This is really bad." Mrs. Mitchell gripped her knitting needles like weapons. "Officers, there must be some mistake. Clara wouldn't hurt a fly. This woman has been harassing." "Ma'am, please stay back," Johnson instructed, hand up in S-top gesture. The atmosphere shifted from Sunday afternoon peace to something electric and dangerous. "Ma'am," Martinez stepped closer to Clara, "I'm going to need to see some identification." That's when I snapped. Every protective instinct fired at once. I launched myself between them, spatula still in hand like the world's most ridiculous weapon. "That's my wife. This is our property. We have deeds from 1924, papers, history. She's lying." My voice cracked with panic. "This woman is insane. She measures grass. She finds birds for singing. She tried to steal our home. Arrest her. Sir, I need you to step back." Martinez's voice carried the kind of authority that usually worked, but not on a husband watching his wife get threatened. "No, you don't understand. This woman has been terrorizing us. She's the criminal here. She embezzled $30,000. We have proof, USB drives, recordings, evidence." Clara touched my arm, gentle but firm. The same touch that had calmed me through 100 smaller storms. "Leo, it's okay." Her voice was steady as bedrock. "It's not okay." I was probably crying, definitely yelling, probably looking like a madman with a spatula. "They can't do this. You didn't do anything wrong. Trust me," she said. And something in her eyes, that same calm certainty I'd seen in the courtroom videos I'd watched online, made me step back, but my legs were shaking. my heart wastering to escape through my ribs. This was my biggest fear made real. Losing her. Losing our home, losing everything to someone's vindictive lies. Martinez reached for his cuffs. The metal caught the sunlight as he pulled them from his belt. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to turn around and place your hand." "Officer Martinez," Clara interrupted, voice carrying the kind of calm that comes from facing down worse than this. "I understand you're doing your job. You received a call. You need to respond, and you need to ensure everyone's safety. I respect that. May I please retrieve my identification? It's in my pocket." She gestured to her gardening apron, the one with daisies printed on it, that I'd bought her as a joke but she actually loved. Martinez paused, caught between procedure and something in Clara's tone that suggested this wasn't going the way he expected. He nodded cautiously, slowly. "Ma'am, no sudden movements." Clara reached into her apron pocket with the same deliberate care she used when handling evidence. Not rushed, not worried, like she'd done this dance before. Knew every step, every beat, every moment where it could go wrong. She pulled out a leather wallet. Not her everyday one with the coffee shop loyalty cards and grocery receipts. This was different, official-looking, worn but maintained. The kind of leather that got better with age. She opened it with practiced ease. Removed a card. Not a driver's license, not a credit card, something else. Something that caught the light differently. She held it out to Martinez. Identification Officer Martinez took the card, probably expecting another driver's license, another name to run through the system. He looked at it. His expression went through a transformation I'll never forget. Confusion first. This wasn't what he expected. Then recognition, the seal, the title, the name. Then his eyes went wide. Wider than I'd ever seen a human's eyes go. This says... He looked up at Clara, then back at the card, then up again, like his brain was refusing to process what his eyes were seeing. His voice came out strangled. Assistant Attorney General Clara Mitchell. The world stopped, everything stopped. The birds stopped singing. The wind stopped blowing. Even the lake seemed to pause its gentle lapping. Tommy dropped his iPad. It hit the ground with a crack that would normally have devastated him, but he didn't even notice. "What?" he shrieked. Mrs. Mitchell gasped so hard she dropped her knitting. A whole row of stitches began unraveling, but she didn't move to stop it. Aggie made a sound like someone had punched her in the stomach while she was gargling. A horrible strangled noise that might have been no or might have just been her soul leaving her body. Martinez's entire demeanor transformed in an instant. His spine straightened like someone had replaced it with a steel rod. His shoulders squared, his chin lifted. The casual authority was replaced by something else. Respect, awe, and maybe a little fear. He snapped to attention. Full military salute. The kind they teach at the academy. The kind reserved for the highest honors. "Ma'am, Attorney General Mitchell, I had no idea. It is an absolute honor." Johnson scrambled over, nearly tripping on his own feet. "What's happening? Why are you?" Martinez showed him the ID with shaking hands. Johnson's jaw didn't just drop. It unhinged like a snake's. He fumbled his own salute, almost hitting himself in the face in his haste. "Ma'am, we're so sorry for the confusion. We had no idea. This is your—" Oh my God. I stood there frozen. That was my wife, my Clara. The woman who made terrible dad jokes and cried at dog adoption commercials and could never remember to close the kitchen cabinets, getting sallied by cops. My brain felt like it was buffering, trying to load this new information. Aggie stumbled backward like she'd been physically struck. No, check it again. It's fake. She's lying. She can't be. I researched. I know who she is. Her voice broke into something between a scream and a sob. Martinez turned to her and his voice went from respectful to ice cold in an instant. "Ma'am, are you suggesting the Assistant Attorney General of our state is using fraudulent identification? Are you aware that's a serious accusation against a state official?" But Aggie's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Clara finally spoke, her voice carrying the weight of truth. "Officers, I didn't want to use my position. This is my grandmother's cabin. I use my maiden name here because this is my private life. My sanctuary. I've never asked for special treatment. I've never thrown my title around. But when someone calls the police with false allegations, when someone tries to use the law as a weapon," she turned to face Aggie directly. "You knew who I was. You've known all along. You targeted me specifically because 5 years ago, it prosecuted you for real estate fraud. You lost your company, your wealth, your reputation, all because you broke the law. And instead of learning from it, you came here for revenge. Tommy, who'd been silent in shock, suddenly found his voice. 50 million views. Chat is going insane. You too, are you seeing this? The actual Attorney General. She's the actual Attorney General. His cracked iPad was somehow still recording, capturing every second of this insane moment. But you made one mistake, Clara Ara continued, her voice steady as a judge's gavel. You thought I'd immediately flash my badge. Use my power. Prove your point that I'm just another corrupt official who hides behind their position. Instead, I let you show everyone exactly who you are. A criminal who never learned her lesson. Aggie tried to run. In her panic, she spun too fast and her foot caught on her own measuring tape, the one she'd weaponized against us 4 weeks. She went down hard, face first into Clara's grandmother's rose bush. The thorns caught her perfectly styled hair, her white suit, her dignity. She landed in a sprawl that would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetically perfect. The measuring tape unrolled beside her like it was taking one final measurement. The distance of her fall from grace. Poetic justice served with a side of roses. But the cop didn't arrest Clara. He did something that made 50 million people replay this moment. What was it? Your jaw's about to drop. Keep watching. Martinez helped Aggie to her feet, professional, despite pulling someone from a rose bush. She had scratches on her face, leaves in her hair, and her dignity thoroughly shredded. Ma'am, Martinez said, producing his cuffs. You're under arrest for filing a false police report, harassment of a state official, and He glanced at Clara. Embezzlement, fraud, and racketeering. Clara supplied calmly. I'll be filing formal charges Monday morning. Wait. Brad came running, USB drive held high. I have everything. Every crime. I'm pre-law and I want a deal. Martinez took the USB while securing Aggie's wrists. The click of the cuffs was the most satisfying sound I'd ever heard. Tommy hadn't stopped narrating. Fam, we're at 57 million views. The Attorney General just got a Karen arrested with roses. Mrs. Mitchell stood slowly. Officers, I'd like to file a complaint too. This woman forced me to sell my previous home through harassment. More neighbors appeared. The Johnstons, the Patels, even reclusive Gary. All with stories, all with evidence. Aggie's last words as they guided her to the patrol car. I'll sue everyone. My lawyer will destroy you. Clara watched the car disappear. No, she said quietly. You won't, because tomorrow I'm personally filing charges with the state. Your days of terrorizing good people are over. 6 months later, we were having dinner when mail arrived. A postcard from Riverside Heights showed Aggie at a ribbon-cutting ceremony. New HOA president brings order. She wore a new bedazzled measuring tape. I started laughing uncontrollably. Clara looked concerned until I gasped. Look up Riverside Heights Attorney General. She typed quickly, then saw Colonel James Thompson, USMC retired. 20 years military justice, zero tolerance policy. Prosecuted 47 HOA fraud cases. Clara read it twice, then started giggling. The giggle became hysteria. We laughed until our sides hurt. She moved to his district, Clara wheezed. A Marine colonel who specializes in HOA fraud. Tommy burst in. Clara, we need a follow-up video. Karen moves to Marine Attorney General town. Later, Clara sat watering Harris's as Tommy filmed. What would you tell others dealing with HOA Karens? Tommy asked. Clara smiled. Document everything, know your rights. And remember, silence isn't weakness. Sometimes the quietest person is the most dangerous. But you're super nice. That's the point, Tommy. Real power isn't about using it. It's about knowing when not to. Like when the cops saluted you exactly. Aggie spent weeks measuring everyone else. She never stopped to measure herself. 6 months later, Clara gets mail that made her laugh so hard she cried.